It's Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods.
Six oh six the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Wednesday, so over the hump we go.
Sponsored by Rabid Penguin Spray, the only spray guaranteed to keep dangerous rabid penguins at bay.
And you never know when you're going to come across one of those suckers, so, I'd be ready at all times.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave, just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
Some pretty nice rain moved across the region and is still moving across, and we could get some more as the day goes on. That's good news. The firefighters are certainly enjoying that. No really heavy showers, but anything is definitely going to help. The Fish Creek fire, which is the one that closed Togety Pass is still closed, by the way. That one got out of hand again. They're still trying to get it contained. And I found out the reason why. Because that's the area that had a whole lot of snow just a week ago. And I thought, well, that certainly will help. I know it's not a grass fire like out in eastern Wyoming. It's pine trees. But still, though, that's really going. And just when we thought, hey, snow, and that's going to help out, and we're going to get it done, and no, it's burning as much as ever. And still, again, Togety Pass is closed. I think they closed that Monday, and it's still closed today. So, reason for that is a lot of the timber up in that area, which is very hard to get to area, by the way, being up in the mountains, that's pine trees with a lot of beetle kill that's been sitting there for quite a while. So you get that stuff caught on fire, and once it gets going, boy, it is hard to put it out, which is why all of that snow didn't do a whole lot. It's nice they got some rain overnight, and they might get some more in that area. That'll certainly help firefighters. But that doesn't mean it's going to be out anytime soon. The cooler weather is going to help, too, all across Wyoming, along with the rain. But, again, we got a little while for this to go on. The rain we're getting now, according to Don Day's forecast, which is extended forecast, is at 6:45. That's certainly good, and we get some more of that throughout the morning and into part of the afternoon. Then we hit another little dry spell for a while. So let's make as much of this as we possibly can. All right, so I've got a story that made me smile just a little bit. I was glad to see this, although I know we're not done with this. A while back, the governor of Wyoming decided to get us involved in a carbon capture program that had to do with sucking CO2 straight out of the atmosphere. In which case, you heard me complaining about what a useless idea, especially if not only are we never going to get enough to make a difference with these machines, but if anything, we should be putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. So what a horrible idea. Well, that idea is leaving Wyoming. Now, it still may go somewhere else, but here's the story, Cowboy State Daily. Carbon Capture, Inc., which wanted to build one of the world's largest direct air capture CO2 storage projects in southwestern Wyoming, is pulling the plug on the development. Quote, we've been seeing growing competition for clean power, which, again, it's not clean power, among industries that are emerging faster than anybody would have anticipated, they said the CEO. And by the way, it is a Los Angeles-based company. Carbon capture cited intense competition from data centers in the region for electricity, potentially the reason why it's moving from Wyoming. This is a quote. It's acutely affecting our efforts in Wyoming, and as a result, we decided to pause our development of the Project Bison, to relocate the development of our first-of-a-kind project outside the state. The new location will be announced in some months or so. The clean power requirements. Now, again, clean power. They're talking wind and solar. That's not clean power. I'm going to hit that every time they try to offer it. They said it was the main reason for the move, possibly requiring as much as 3 times what could be generated by the reactor, the nuclear reactor near Kemmermer, according to, and Bill Gates, of course, building that one. So they need, in other words, in order to capture CO2 directly from the atmosphere, they need electricity, and lots of it. And much of the electricity we're going to be producing in Wyoming in the coming years, we're going to have some data centers built here, and those data centers are going to be hungry for electricity. And this direct-from-the-air carbon capture system needs a lot of power. So, sorry, we're just not going to have a lot of power. Especially, they want it to be wind and solar power. If we can't have that, then what do you want us to do, make it out of coal? We can't have a coal power plant doing this. Story says, other than wind and solar forms of generation, which has been severely limited, geothermal energy was an option, but that energy is off limits in Wyoming because it's concentrated mainly on parklands. You don't want some geothermal center right up there in Yellowstone, in other words. The only major direct air capture project underway in the world is Orca, which is located in Ireland. The facility is powered with geothermal energy, and they say can capture about 50 tons of CO2 annually. In which case, I would say, if anything, take that CO2 and put it directly back in the atmosphere where it belongs. And by the way, as they're trying to do useless and expensive things like this, we are producing more CO2 than ever before, which is good, especially in countries like China and other Asian countries, India too, and African countries as well coming online trying to get electricity going. They need reliable power, which means more CO2 has been coming online. So the world is not producing less CO2. Human beings aren't. It's producing more. Plus the planet itself is producing more CO2, which again is a good thing. So based on huge power demands, Project Bison, the supply-demand market for selling carbon credits, wasn't looking appealing in Wyoming. Quote, despite the progress we've experienced in materials science and our manufacturing breakthroughs, we've been finding it difficult to deal with some of the challenges around development. We have no doubt that Wyoming will continue to build out clean energy infrastructure. I hope we don't, but okay. The Bison project was massive in scope, the story says, and would have been required hundreds of 40-foot-long shipping containers equipped with filters to absorb CO2 directly from the air. The original plan was to begin construction of the project on private land held by ranchers, Rock Springs, Green River area. In their statement, they said a full-scale commercial model to capture CO2 from the air will begin at a manufacturing facility in Arizona later this year. Finally, the story says this passed carbon capture disclosure plan to identify, they're looking for energy partners. Oh, okay. Then the story goes on to how Wyoming is losing out, which I would say it is. When this project was first proposed, I thought, what a damn waste of time and money and energy and so on. Glad to see it move on. Now, the fact that they say, well, we're just going to have to build it somewhere else, it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to build it somewhere else. It didn't disappear for the reason I wanted it to. I wanted it to disappear because people just thought it was a crap idea. But that's okay. If they couldn't do it because there's so much energy needed to run this facility that they're not going to have, and they demand that it comes from wind and solar, and we're not going to be able to provide it, well, that's good enough for me. The project is leaving Wyoming.
Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get started for you today?
Yeah, can I just get a cheeseburger?
Okay, is that going to be offered today?
Yeah, it's going to be offered today.
All right, it's going to be $378.19.
Actually, I don't need the cheese. You can take the cheese off.
No cheese?
Yeah, let's do no cheese. No cheese.
All right, that brings your total down to $312.17.
That sounds better.
All right, and are you going to be paying in full or will you be financing?
Yeah, I'll be financing today.
Okay.
Let's do the finance.
All right, and after interest, your total will be $61 a month for 6 months.
All right.
First window, please. Thank you.
Now, Glenn Woods fits in your pocket with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030, K2 Radio.
6:23 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. All right, for those who just joined me, Reader's Digest version of this. I was complaining about this a while ago. I got a wish. I wanted this thing to go away, and it's going away. A huge carbon capture facility, which is supposed to suck CO2 right out of the air, was going to be built in southwestern Wyoming. And even the governor was on his program talking about he thought it was a great idea, even though he admitted it's not going to really capture a whole lot of CO2. It takes a massive amount of energy to run this thing for what they're going to get for it, and CO2 is good in the air. It's not a pollutant. We should be putting more of it in the air. Well, okay, so to run the facility, they only wanted to run it on wind and solar. I mean, it's counterproductive to have a coal plant running this facility to capture CO2. So they want wind and solar because they can wrongly consider that to be clean energy. Well, Wyoming is not going to have the power to do it from wind and solar. We have all these data centers coming in, Microsoft, stuff like that. So there's a lot of competition for the energy they're going to need, is what they say. So they're going to move somewhere else. My answer is, fine, good riddance. Go somewhere else and do it. We don't need it here in Wyoming. All right, so Jim, good one. Jim is in Casper, Wyoming. It says the carbon capture company did some research and found competing technologies, one which is truly the only green, low-energy requirement to capture requirement carbon capture technologies, and will put them out of business because the low cost to the environment and friendly technologies, it's running scared and needs to reevaluate its corporate strategy. The newly discovered technology can be implemented immediately and exponentially at lower costs. It's called planting trees. So in other words, what Jim is saying, there's already a technology in existence out there that we can go ahead and use at any time. If you want to capture CO2, plant trees. And besides that, I did a little digging a while ago. Is it just trees? Grass. Look at our prairies. That inhales a lot of CO2. If that's what you're worried about, this is why the planet's getting greener. Because as more CO2 enters the atmosphere, the entire planet has been getting greener. So, no, Jim's right. You don't need to build some facility to suck CO2 out of the air. All right? Nature's already doing it. The planet, according to NASA even, the planet is getting greener. So you don't need to build some facility, some expensive facility, to capture CO2. DJ and Gillette. Some geniuses that uses food for fuel, ethanol. Let's see, Red. Good move on that. Good. Move that garbage to California. They have mastered the art of government-sponsored failure. And, of course, Chet and Yoder is just laughing at carbon capture because, again, it's absolutely nonsense. And I've gone into it before, I know, but it really is a big pet peeve of mine. The idea that CO2 today is treated by so many as a harmful pollutant that we need to get rid of. And if we did get rid of it, they don't seem to understand this is a dead planet. But again, Jim's right. The idea that, well, you need to build some big facility to suck CO2 directly out of the air. Nature does it already. There's a natural process for this. It's why the planet is getting greener. And a greener planet is a good thing. But if you want the planet, see, it's a balance. If you want the planet to get greener, you want more CO2 in the air. So, if anything, we have to get the educational process going because so many people in the world have this idea that CO2 is a pollutant that we have to get rid of, not understanding the science behind it, which the science they should have learned in elementary school, middle school. I did. Most of you did. So somehow we've got to re-educate people away from this nonsense idea that CO2 is a harmful thing that's going to kill us all unless we suck it out of the atmosphere, and show people that, in fact, it's necessary. And if anything, we're at a CO2 deficit right now. We could use some more of it on the planet. Back when the planet was warmer and there was a lot more CO2 in the atmosphere, and by the way, the two don't go together. You can have a really hot planet Earth with very low CO2, or vice versa. But there have been some times in the past where geologists found that the planet was a lot warmer and there was a lot more CO2, and life was a lot more abundant than it is today. So the answer is keep pumping that stuff into the atmosphere. Okay, so one of those rare moments where I actually get my wish. And the wish was that this whole carbon capture facility would just go away. It didn't go away for the reasons that I wanted it to go away, but it went away. Okay, good. Now, their idea that they're just going to go build this in some other state, we'll see what happens. I'm thinking they have a pipe dream here. They're not going to be able to build it in some other state. We'll see. They've got a long way to go. And the company will continue to exist as long as you're getting government subsidies, which, by the way, even that runs out. They were expecting to make money off of this by selling carbon credits. In other words, if you ran a company that produced a lot of CO2, you could pay these guys to suck CO2 out of the air, balancing it. That's how they were going to make money, selling carbon credits by sucking CO2 out of the air. Coming up on some local business that we have to take care of, that's news time. After local news, update on the weather forecast. A lot cooler today, a bit wetter. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
Local and mobile across Wyoming and beyond with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name's Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. Wednesday, over the hump we go. Okay, so there's still people out there wearing masks, and I don't just mean, we'll get into this a little bit later this morning, the college kids who are showing back up for college, who are, many of them not actually at the college, already protesting pro-Hamas and so on. You notice a lot of them are wearing masks, which in places like New York has become illegal, which is going to hurt those people who are still wearing masks because, you know, they're afraid of COVID or stuff like that. And they got that from the whole pandemic thing of 2020, and they're still wearing those masks today as if they actually do anything. Well, it's been shown repeatedly that those masks are not all that effective, really. They don't do nothing, but they don't do a whole lot either. So you're not doing much if you're wearing a mask because somebody's sick or because you're sick. Well, get a load of this. Smart mask. Now, right away, when someone comes up with technology and they want to sell it to you, they got to throw in the buzzwords. So the first word is smart. Smart mask. See, you're smart if you wear this. It's like when you buy, there's a bottle of water you can buy out there called Smart Water, because you're smart if you drink that water. Smart mask turns every exhale into a mini health check while protecting you from germs. Yeah. Okay, so the story says, welcome to the future of personalized medicine, where your exhaled breath is a monitor into your well-being. The scientists in the California Institute of Technology have unveiled a groundbreaking smart mask that does just that, to protect you from germ, and analyzes what you're exhaling and keeps tabs on your health. Exhale breath. They analyze the respiratory evaluation, whatever, while other smart masks in development focus on physical factors like breathing rate, temperature, stuff like that. So you put this mask on because you're a hypochondriac, basically. And as you're breathing, it's taking your temperature and analyzing your exhale. And, yeah, of course, there's a little bit of humidity in your breath. It'll analyze that, too. Story says the innovative mask, detailed in a recent study published in Science, goes beyond the traditional face covering by incorporating advanced technology to collect and analyze exhaled breath. What sets this EB Care apart, is what they're calling it, is its ability to constantly monitor multiple health markers in real time as you go about your day. How about this? Wearing the mask all day long in itself is unhealthy. Does it monitor that? Because what you're exhaling is supposed to be what you're getting rid of. And the mask holds some of that in, which is not good for you. Here's a quote. Since COVID-19, people are wearing masks more. Yeah, because they got sucked into it. And now they believing that they actually should have this on all the time. We can leverage this increased mask to wearing for remote personalized monitoring to get real-time feedback about your own health at your own office or at home. For instance, we could use this information to assess how well a medication is working. The potential applications for this technology could help monitor chronic conditions as well. So, to test their creation, researchers concluded several studies with both healthy individuals and patients with various conditions to see if they could analyze whatever was in the exhale. Oh, and then this is funny. They show three, I guess maybe they're college-age people. One of them is carrying books, so I guess that's supposed to be college age. And they're wearing this mask and posing for the camera. And the way they have this set up is supposed to be some kind of a fashion statement or something like that. Okay. In the meantime, again, places like New York are banning people wearing masks because, well, there's protesters and at times violent protesters and riots and vandalism and harassment of people. And to not get caught, they hide their faces from the cameras by wearing masks. So for that reason, those people who have been wearing masks all this time are going to be really disappointed that the city that they live in is banned wearing masks because, well, that's what people who have bad intentions do. Like in the days of the Old West, you want to rob a train, you put a mask over your face, right? There's that. But then just like when I was talking about CO2 in the last segment of the program, there's a lot of education that needs to be done about mask wearing. Those paper masks, what they do stop is this is why doctors will wear them when operating and so on. We all spit when we talk, whether we like it or not, we do. We exhale some vapor, we all do. Your exhale is a little moist. And so the mask will help catch a little bit of that. But most of the germs go right through. So if you're thinking, I'm going to not get sick because I'm wearing one of these things, yes, you will, because the germs are so much smaller than the weave of those things, especially the paper ones. And then those cloth ones are really not a whole lot better either. And it's also been found that wearing those things all day long is actually really bad for you. You're supposed to be exhaling that stuff, it's outgassing it. It's your exhaust, if you will. The one that comes out of the top end of your body, not the bottom end. 642, Wake Up Wyoming.
So many opinions, we had to build the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app to hold them all. Free download from AM 1030 K2 Radio.
6:48 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Frank Gambino, who is off on vacation after a whole long, hard week worth, and a weekend, I guess, worth of. Do you like the intro this time, Frank?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sitting in an empty casino in Deadwood.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the sports book watching TV. So that's,
wow. Is that open 24/7?
24/7, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, it's like movie style seating, and you watch these big TVs and see if you can bet on this and bet on that.
Yeah.
Which I don't have any money. I don't even know why I'm in a casino when I don't have any money, but that's where I could stay. So,
well, you're in Deadwood, therefore you're in a casino,
yes.
and you don't have any money. And if you had brought money, you wouldn't have any money by now.
Right. So you try to enjoy the amenities of the whole thing without leaving broke.
Sure. There are plenty
possible.
of things to do and see in Deadwood without having to spend money. But
right. I have to find them.
Yes, everybody focuses on the gambling. How about go up and see the grave of Calamity Jane and, Buffalo Bill and all that kind of stuff? That's up there.
Yeah, we can pan for gold.
You can pan
like
for
that,
gold, well, sure. You can do historic tours. There's even ghost tours at night. There's a lot of things to do in Deadwood. You can go pick a fight with some drunk if you want. I mean, fine. There's guys that walk the streets in Deadwood in period costume, playing the roles. There's that.
And they're paid employees too.
Yes, they are. Yeah. So you see, there's plenty of things. Rather than sitting in a sports betting place wondering what the hell am I doing here, Frank, those are things you can do. But it surprised me, I guess, a little bit. These places are open 24 hours a day. I thought that they had just regular hours, but I guess gambling goes on no matter what.
Oh, yeah. It's 24/7, 365.
Okay.
Onshore, offshore. It's the way life is now.
So if you want to lose money,
my brother and his family flew up here from Florida.
Right.
So we kind of trolled around the Black Hills, and we're going to do some of the touristy things over by Keystone and stuff like that.
Sure.
So it'll be fine. Everything
Needles
will be fine.
Highway will be just fine.
All right, in college football, the Wyoming Cowboys will try and rebound from that brutal performance last week at Arizona State. They'll host Idaho on Saturday afternoon in Laramie. The folks look bad in just about every single area, with the exception of punting, and that 48-7 loss to Arizona State to start the season. It's time to circle the wagons, and the team really needs to display massive improvements to give fans and themselves some hope moving forward for the rest of the season. Everybody needs to play better, which is obvious. Coaches need to coach better, which is obvious. And Idaho is on a pushover. Last week they lost to third-rated Oregon 24-14 on the road. They were picked to finish third in the preseason Big Sky Conference poll. The Vandals were 9-4 a year ago and made the quarterfinal round of the FCS playoffs. Plus, they have one of the best defenses in FCS last year and return all four of their defensive linemen. Right now, UW 8-point favorites in the game. That's a 1:30 start on Saturday in Laramie. We'll have that for you on K2 Radio in Casper and KOWB in Laramie. High school football, it's the second week of the season for the 4A schools. Casper and Natrona, after posting a home win over Thunder Basin last week, will be on the road this week at Rock Springs. Thunder Basin will be at home in Gillette to meet defending 4A champion Sheridan on Friday, who defeated Cheyenne South by 79 last week. South will be looking to break that super long losing streak, hosting Cheyenne East on Friday, and East beat Laramie last week handily. And Laramie will go to Casper to meet Kelly Walsh at the Harry Galdine Stadium in Casper on Friday. And KW lost big to Campbell County last Friday. Campbell County will be going to Cheyenne to meet Central on Friday night. Division I college volleyball, the Wyoming Cowgirls won both of their matches at the Omaha tournament over the weekend. On Friday, the Cowgirls posted a 5-set win over Washington State, 25-22, 19-25, 23-25, 25-17, and 15-11. Washington State made the NCAA tournament a year ago, and Kelly Walsh High School grad Abby Milby had 8 kills in that match for UW. On Saturday, the Cowgirls beat Omaha, who was also made it to the NCAA tournament a year ago in 3 straight. 25-23, 25-18, 31-29. Milby had another 8 kills in that match. The Cowgirls will be on the road in Ohio for a tournament this weekend, hosted by Akron and Cleveland State. And that's it in sports.
Okay. So I guess at some point you go off and get some breakfast and wait for everybody else to wake up?
Yeah, get organized. Yeah, because my brother is staying at some kind of like a camping place in Hill City, South Dakota.
Right.
Which is actually like on the back end of Mount Rushmore in that area. So we'll all coordinate and go that way and see what's going on. You know, trust me, when you're on vacation with 2 5-year-olds, it wears you out. You know.
Yes. Well, 2 5-year-olds and Uncle Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be exhausting. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
Coming up on some local business that we got to take care of. We're going to roll into news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. So is the Constitution now all of a sudden dangerous? Yeah, okay, I'll explain all to you next hour of the program. Let's Wake Up Wyoming. Yeah. Six at a time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It's a Wednesday, and over the hump we go. Togety Pass is still closed, just so you know.
Today's show is sponsored by Rabid Penguin Spray, the only spray guaranteed to keep dangerous rabid penguins at bay.
And you just never know when you're going to run into one of those, so be prepared. So again, Togety Pass, we did get some rain out there. And across other parts of Wyoming as well, which is helpful to the fires. I do have an article up this morning on the Wake Up Wyoming site as to why the area in Togety Pass has been so hard to put out. And even though they had snow in the area, but it's mainly because you have a bunch of old pine trees that have died a long time ago from beetle kill. And it's been dead standing there waiting for a fire to come along. Here it is. Very difficult to put out, even when they've had snow and rain up in the area. Okay, so 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. I came across this story from a blog I follow. The title of the story is Suddenly the Constitution is Dangerous. And it's interesting how news organizations tend to come out with the same story pretty much all at once. Now, some people will say, well, it's because they're working together. Okay, I wouldn't doubt if sometimes that happens. In most cases, it's because someone came up with an idea for a story and a bunch of other reporters out there that are looking for something to write about will seize those stories and they'll decide to write about it too. Because they're desperate for content. And next thing you know, all these stories are being repeated all over the place. So, the author of this says, New York Times and a slew of influencers have discovered that the Constitution is the most dangerous and subversive document ever written. And there appears to be a pattern. So here's some headlines from, in fact, let me see if I can open this up so I can see it a little bit bigger to read it to you. It's headlines from different news organizations, including New York Times. Here are the headlines. The Constitution is sacred. Is it also dangerous? Subtitle, one of the biggest threats to America's politics might be the country's founding document. Really? They think that? Okay. Next headline, the Constitution is broken and should be reclaimed. Next headline, MAGA turns against the Constitution. I doubt that, but okay. Next headline, we had to force the Constitution to accommodate democracy, and it shows. That's nonsense, but all right, reading on. The Constitution won't save us from Trump. That was a New York Times headline, by the way, some opinion piece. Next headline, is the Constitution obstructing American democracy? Next headline, let's give up on the Constitution. Next headline, the U.S. lacks what every democracy needs. Now, if you're sitting at home screaming at the radio, but we're a republic, exactly, but hang on, one more. Headline, this is the story of how Lincoln broke the U.S. Constitution. Okay. So, yeah, it is interesting. Now, the author of this article that I'm reading says, this is an argument that has gained a lot of steam in the 21st century, and it's been at the heart of the progressive movement since President Wilson's election. Wilson, a political scientist, believed in the modern world, the ideal form of government was technically led by experts that understood how things really worked. In other words, the Obama form of government, Obama loved to do that. Whenever something needed to be fixed, Obama would call out what he thought were the experts. Well, this guy's a Nobel Prize laureate, so therefore he knows how to fix things, so we should do what he says. What makes the Constitution so dangerous, this author says in the eye of progressives, is not that it empowers regional or radical minorities, although Wilson was a vicious racist and eugenics who hated what he saw as inferior. But what he despised was any limits on the power of government, which is something that, again, progressives tend to like, the idea of the power of government, and not your individual liberties. In the empowerment of individuals, and that's where the Constitution rests, the empowerment of individualism. And so that's something I think when I take a look at this that is missed by people at the New York Times and some other news organizations who are not the reporters but the opinion writers. But also there's other Democrats, some that I've talked to over the years. They hate the idea of the Constitution, and yet they've never read the damn thing. And they don't understand the purpose behind it. But they also hate the idea of the individual. In other words, this is your life, and you go ahead and make your own decisions here. Not that we have people at the top making decisions for us, but you get to make your own decisions, which is the whole idea of a free country. A little while earlier this summer, I gave a little bit of a talk on this program about what is a republic. Because it's often gotten wrong by not just people in the news media, but even college professors, and that America is a democracy. And you could argue that we're a democratic republic if you want to go that far. Mainly we are a republic, and the difference is, in a republic, you get to lead your own life. Your decisions are yours. There are some rules. Don't steal, don't kill, stuff like that. Be a decent, honest person. But your life is yours. And that comes with a lot of responsibility. And government is not here to provide for you, and government is not here to tell you what to do. That's your responsibility. But you get to lead your own life as you see fit. Go do that. And other people get to lead their lives as they see fit. They can go do that. And we're not going to agree on how to do things. There's people who are going to raise their kids differently than you raise your kids. And that's okay. If somebody wants to be a socialist in America, that's fine. They can go ahead and get together with other socialists and start some kind of a commune, which happened a lot in the 60s. Quite a few communes popped up where they experimented with socialism. It always failed, but they started, something that they thought was going to be a utopia. And if they want to do that, they can do that. They just can't force other people to join. And government's job is to protect the individual, to lead their own lives. That's why we have a military to keep us safe in a bubble of freedom. Police deal with the bad players in society, and fire department and other rescue services when people are in danger or property is in danger. Courts will settle our disputes. Government's really not supposed to be doing a lot besides that. I mean, they can build some roads and bridges and so on, but they're really not supposed to be doing a whole lot. And the Constitution is limiting government. And there's, I think, what the liberals out there really hate. They keep talking about democracy, but they always want somebody in charge of the people. They always want someone to lead the people. And they don't seem to understand the idea that no one is really supposed to be leading us here in America. When election time comes around this November, you're not supposed to be electing your leaders. And I don't think some of the leaders understand that. You're not supposed to be electing the leaders. We're supposed to be electing people who will do the job of government, which is supposed to be a boring job with not a whole lot to do. And everybody else individually, we're all in charge of leading our own lives. That's what a free country is. So no, the Constitution isn't broken. It's if in the sense that it doesn't hold back if we were to abide by the Constitution. It's actually, I think, one of the most important documents ever written. The problem is, in America, we are not using the Constitution as it should be used. If we did, our government would be a lot smaller. And your taxes would be a whole lot lower.
Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Hotline. If you are obsessive-compulsive, press 1 repeatedly. If you are codependent, ask someone to press 2 for you. If you have multiple personalities, press 3, 4, 5, 6. If you are paranoid, we know what you are and what you want.
Well, that image is going to stick with you all day. He's talking to himself in a padded room, and you could be the voice in his head. Join the conversation on Wake Up Wyoming, 866-97-WOODS.
7:20 is the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. Nice to have a little rain moving through the area. Don Day's forecast, 7:45. And I will talk about this and what it looks like as we get toward the weekend here. So, good comment, Chris. Chris is over in Casper. What I was talking about was several headlines. New York Times started it from several other news organizations as they talk about the Constitution actually getting in the way of democracy. And so the authors of those opinion pieces obviously don't have any understanding of the Constitution or what America is supposed to be. Now, Chris says, constitutional government sounds like a great idea. We should probably try it. We left ours behind in the Jefferson or maybe the Adams administration, and that's true. Absolutely. We've gotten so far strayed, so far away from the Constitution. So when someone says, well, the Constitution gets in the way of progress and what we're trying to get done, we really haven't been using the Constitution for a long time. We really haven't. If we were to get back to it, your federal government especially would be so much smaller, way smaller than it is now. And your taxes would be so much lower. Government interference, I mean, even the idea that, I pick on wind and solar and electric cars because they're heavily subsidized. Government wouldn't be doing that. In fact, government would not be involved in the energy industry at all. Government would not be involved in the economy at all. The idea that we're in a recession, so it's the president's fault. It wouldn't be his fault because he wouldn't be involved in it. I remember back when Obama was president, I think he might have been running for re-election, and somebody put up a billboard, "Where are the jobs, Mr. President?" And the answer to that really should be, why are you asking him? President doesn't provide jobs for you. And that's you get a lot of that out of the news media, and I don't care which news media you're listening to. You get a lot of that out of the news media. When they look at job performance, what the economy is doing, and they compare that to the president as if the president's supposed to be in charge of the economy. He's not, nor is Congress. When people turn to members of Congress or presidents, whoever, turn and say, well, we're going to fix your health care because, you have a right to health care and we're going to make sure you have good health care. Government's not supposed to be involved in your health care other than if your doctor is a quack and the medicine is snake oil and your insurance company reneges on their contract. Government will step in to deal with bad players like that. Other than that, health care is supposed to be up to you. That's your responsibility. It's not a right, but it is your responsibility. And if you have family, they're your responsibility too. So that's what government is and is not supposed to be doing when it comes to anything in your life. Government telling you what kind of car you should be driving. It's not really supposed to be any of their business. The fact that we have so many bureaucrats writing rules and regulations, not supposed to be. But with the progressive idea today, and I should just say today, the progressive idea has been for a very long time that we need a constitution that allows government to take over, take charge, and lead the people. And once again, they don't seem to understand the idea that that's not how we do it in America. There's other countries where that happens. There's other countries where they have government to lead the people. And in some countries, I find people who are looking for that. They want to be led. Who's our king or whoever it might be? Who's our leader? What are we supposed to be doing? America was a very different experiment in the beginning, and it worked so well. The whole idea that it's not government's business what you do. You can work hard and become successful on any level. You can go ahead and buy property, and it's yours. It's your private property. And nobody's allowed to come along and tell you what you can and can't do with it. It's yours. That's the idea of America. And government's job is to protect that. Now, that form of individualism, once again, is not something that progressives today want to hear. Instead, they like the idea that government rules over you. Now, I've heard from the Kamala Harris campaign that they're the party of freedom. And I look at it and I think, I don't think you understand what that means. Kind of like the Princess Bride. That word you keep using, I don't think it means what you think it means. Because the idea of freedom, actually, and liberty, is government out of my life. So when Kamala Harris says she's for freedom, and they're the party of freedom, and then she starts talking about a government-run healthcare system, those two don't go together. True freedom is it's my responsibility to go out there and make sure I have a healthcare system for me. She's the one, by the way, who wanted to get rid of health insurance and get us all on a single-payer program, which is not freedom. That's not what that is. So, again, all of these articles written, New York Times started it, I think. Many other newspaper columnists followed the idea that, is the Constitution broken? Is it affecting democracy? Should we get rid of the Constitution? No. But as Chris and Casper is saying, we should get back to it, if anything. And I do find that most people who criticize the Constitution and would like to do something else, if I ask them about what's in the Constitution, ask a few basic questions about what's in the Constitution, and they don't know. Oh, they might have got a class about it somewhere in their middle school years where they discussed the Constitution briefly, but they don't really know what is in the Constitution. When's the last time you read it? Now, some of you right away said, yesterday. Yeah, but that's a small minority. When's the last time you read it? It's not very big. You can get a pocket Constitution you got a shirt pocket, it'll fit in there. And that's all that it takes to run this republic and to make sure that you live as a free person in a free country. That little pocket Constitution is all that's needed. And so the volumes of laws that have been written by Congress and the bureaucracy is not supposed to exist. So again, for those people who are asking the question, is the Constitution getting in the way? Have you read the damn thing? Do you really even understand it? I'll even find that most people who graduate high school have no understanding of the Constitution, never really read it. People go through college, same thing. There was a time, remember the Tea Party movement? There were people, and I'm glad they did this, they started to have little get-togethers where they would study and read the Constitution to understand it. Very few people ever showed up for that. Wild transplanters in Cheyenne, freedom from private property, freedom from your money, freedom from your rights. Well, okay, you're right. That's the kind of thing that the progressives are looking for, I guess. They certainly have no concept of what freedom really is or the Constitution really is. If they really wanted freedom, they would embrace the Constitution and the idea of a republic. If they really were interested in that. Coming up on 7:30, local news coming your way after local news update on the weather forecast, and you and I get back into it again. 888-97 Woods, the phone number, 888-97-WOODS. At 7:45, Don Day's going to join us. He's got an update on this changing weather forecast, which is very different today than what you've been experiencing over the past month or so. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
You asked for an expert. We didn't have the budget for that. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Wake Up Wyoming. I'm going to do a completely different topic this time around because this is something I said for the past week or so I was going to write about. And then yesterday something happened that made me say, damn it, I'm going to write about this. So I'm heading home from work. And there's a car that slows down and stops right in front of me. And I'm in a neighborhood. It just stops. I'm like, well, why are you stopping? Not turning, nothing like that. Then I see it. There is a herd of turkey. Now, to me, just so you know, everything's a herd. I one time got on the air and read the long list of what you're supposed to call things. I did like a murder of crows, but there's every different type of animal. It's a different something. A covey of quails, a school of fish. It goes on and on and on. Forever. And I decided I can't memorize all of that, so everything's a herd. I don't care what it is. It's a herd of dolphins. So this is a herd of turkeys. And they were crossing the road. Now you can ask the question why. I don't know why. But they were crossing the road. And so the car comes to a stop to let them pass, and this means the turkeys walk even slower because they're jerks. The turkeys are just jerks around here. And some of them even just stop because they're obnoxious jerks. And the car's waiting for them, and now the traffic's backing up on both sides as people wait for the turkeys to move. All right, well, I'm going to give you some of my life experience. As I've told you many times before, I grew up an island boy. Tropical island off the west coast of Florida, kind of down by the Everglades here, about 3 miles off the coast. And we had bird problems too. There's many different kinds of birds on islands like that, many different kinds. One of them, of course, are these huge cranes. There's massive tall cranes. And they would just stop in the middle of the road and just stand there. Here's what you do. when you see turkeys or any other birds in the road, you slow down just a little bit to give them time to see what's coming, just a little bit, but then don't stop. Trust me when I tell you, all birds do the same thing. They'll play chicken with you, pun intended. But then they're going to get out of your way. They will panic and run, and you'll win that one. So if you ever see turkeys crossing the road, no matter where you are in Wyoming or anywhere else, just slow down a bit to give them time to see you and keep going. Trust me, you're going to win this one. Everett's way out in Woods Landing, which is one of my favorite places, by the way. Hello, Everett.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, sir. What you got?
Well, I was watching TV just a little while ago, and on Newsmax, and they showed a destroyer over next to the sandbox. I think it was the Roosevelt, where the commander was relieved of duty after the Navy posted a photo of him shooting a military rifle with the telescope mounted on it backwards. And it showed the rifle was being fired because you could see 2 empty rounds of brass in the air, so it was a fully automatic rifle. But that telescope was on it backwards, and if anybody's ever looked through a telescope backwards, that whoever had that rifle in their hands would instantly know it was on backwards, because instead of being looking at something up close, you'd be looking at something a half mile away, and you couldn't even tell what it was. But I took a photo. In fact, I took 2 photos of the TV, and really clear photos. And I'm a gun guy myself. And when I saw the photo on the TV itself, I said, "There's something wrong with that." And so I took a close-up picture of it, and there's no rings, mounting rings on that telescope. That telescope is just setting on top of that rifle, unattached. The only 2 parts touching the rifle is the adjusting ring for the power, which is bigger than the base of the...
Here's my question, though. If he had the telescope on backwards, did he still make the shot?
Well, I think what happened is he shot the rifle with the telescope on its right side up.
Yeah.
And somebody photoshopped it, because there is no rings around
There's no reason whatsoever, Because if the telescope was on backwards and he made the shot, then I would say I really got to give the guy credit. I would bet, it sounds to me like it was... Yeah, it sounds to me like it's Photoshop.
When it's sitting on top, after the first round, that telescope would have been off on the ground.
Yeah. All right.
And the only thing touching the rifle is the base of the adjusting for the windage and elevation, and the adjustment on the front end for the how
okay. It sounds like it sounds like somebody photoshopped it, and so I really wouldn't worry about it. Rick is in Cheyenne. My favorite is a Congress of Baboons. Here's what I would keep. I would keep a murder of crows, and I would keep a Congress of Baboons. Everything else is a herd. I one time went through I read a long list. Every single species of animal is called something different when they gather together in a group. Again, a Congress of Baboons makes perfect sense.
Rant alert to everyone telling me to go drink bleach. I'm not thirsty.
Wake Up Woods on K2 Radio. Got something to say? Chat him on the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app or call 888-97-WOODS.
7:45 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming off. We go to talk to Don Day about the weather, which we had some, at least where I'm at, just some nice, slow, soaking rain overnight. It was pleasant.
Yes. Parts of the state, especially the central and the south central parts of the state overnight and early this morning, picking up a bit of rain. Nice to see. We even had a little bit of rain up in northeastern Wyoming, unfortunately not over the fire activity, but off to the east of there. And this is all part of the weather system, a small little Pacific wave that is going to make it cool and unsettled across the state today and really through evening and early tonight, off and on. Chances of rain showers and thunderstorms will be with us. Nothing to write home about, but nice to see.
Okay. And it was good at least for a little bit of firefighter relief. I don't think it's going to put anything out, but hey, water falling from the sky, good thing. So does this go on for most of the day for these firemen?
Well, off and on. You know, it's not going to be continuous, but there's going to be off and on chances even into early tonight, especially in the eastern counties of the state. But once the system gets out of here, Glenn, it's slim pickings. I don't see really any good rain chances for many days in a row.
Wow. Temperatures go back up, but by how much?
Well, they'll go back up to, we're going to enjoy some cooler weather today and tomorrow. A lot of 80s are coming for Friday and the weekend.
Right. Okay. Now, 80s is a good temperature to have, and I guess partly cloudy skies with that one?
A lot of sun, not many clouds.
Okay. Well, see, now this means that you've got nothing to do for the next few days. Will you be taking any vacation time?
Well, actually, this is AI talking.
Okay,
I left a couple of days ago.
That works out perfect for me. Thank you, Don. You know, it's what Don does now. Why go on vacation? Why not just put AI on and let it go? Off we go to talk to Frank Gambino, who's out on vacation himself. In fact, he's in Deadwood, South Dakota. Are you still hanging out at the casino?
Yes, and this is not AI. This is the real me.
The real deal there. Okay, now, I was thinking about, let me get you into a conversation. I haven't had this conversation in a while with people, but you and I were talking yesterday about some turkeys that were crossing the road and how somebody stopped and all the traffic got backed up because of these turkeys. And I wrote an article this morning about why you don't stop. They'll get out of the way.
Those turkeys don't care about you.
No, they don't. Or any other birds for that matter. Where I grew up in Florida, they don't care. Just slow down a bit to give them a chance to react. Other than that, they'll get out of the way. And I called them a herd of turkeys. And the reason I did that is because every kind of animal, when they gather together, has a different name. We've talked about this before. So, for example...
Is it a flock of turkeys?
Well, I guess it would be, yeah. Bats are a colony. Bears are a sleuth. Buffalo. Now, this makes sense. It's a gang of buffalo. Cats are a clouder. Cattle can be a herd or a drove. Deer are a bevy. Dogs get together. It's a pack, a mute, or a kennel. Now, I do like a murder of crows, and a group of baboons is called a congress.
No way.
Yeah, elk is a gang. See, foxes are a leash of foxes. Giraffes, and this makes sense, a tower of giraffes. That makes sense. A band of gorillas.
Tall, aren't they?
I never heard of a band of gorillas before. Kangaroos are a troop. Leopards are a leap. Lions are a pride. You see why I'm having a problem with this? This goes on forever, Frank. Seals are a pod. Squirrels are a scurry. That makes sense. A scurry of squirrels. I understand that one. Tigers are a streak. Whales are a pod. Let me see. Buzzards are a wake of buzzards. I don't know. Why would you call it a wake of... Okay. So...
Is there a word for ants?
Let me see. That's a good one. Let's see. I'm going to type this in here. Do you call I'm going to call it a gathering of
ants.
Ants. Okay. No, it's just a colony or sometimes an army.
An army of ants.
Yeah, you can call it a colony or an army. Okay, a stand of flamingos. Yeah, Miss Mary just said colony of ants. Yep. Hawks are a siege. This goes on forever. I one time spent, and this list, I just keep scrolling as it goes on. Oh, a bed of oysters. Okay. So anyway, cloud of grasshoppers. I just decided I can't do all this, Frank. So I just started calling everything a herd.
I think that's the easiest way, because I'm not sure everyone's going to remember that ants are a colony and kangaroos are a troop.
Yeah. But, now I can remember a murder of crows and a congress of baboons. Those two make complete sense to me. But I think everything else, there's no way I'm going to. So when you see a bunch of turkeys or squirrels or foxes or whatever, it's all a herd. Okay, can we just do that from now on and get rid of all of this? Because frankly, it's gotten ridiculous.
You lost me a long time ago. College football, the Wyoming Cowboys will try and rebound from that brutal performance last week at Arizona State, and they'll host Idaho on Saturday afternoon in Laramie. And the Pokes look bad in just about every area except punting in that 48-7 loss to the Sun Devils to start the season. So it's time to circle the wagons, and obviously the team needs massive improvement, especially at the quarterback spot. And so the team really has got to give fans and really themselves some hope moving forward for the rest of the season. Obviously, everyone needs to play better, and the coaches need to coach better, because Idaho is on a pushover. Last week, they lost to third-rated Oregon 24-14. They were picked to finish third in the preseason Big Sky Conference poll. Vandals were 9-4 a year ago and made the quarterfinal run of the FCS playoffs. Plus, last year they had one of the best defenses in FCS and do return all 4 of their defensive linemen. However, their starting quarterback was hurt in the Oregon game, so they're going to go with their second-string guy on Saturday. And right now, UW favored by 8 points in the game. That's a 1:30 start on Saturday in Laramie. We'll have that for you on K2 Radio in Casper and KOWB in Laramie. High school football, the second week of the season for the 4A schools coming up on Friday. Casper and Latrona, after posting a home win over Thunder Basin last week, they will be on the road at Rock Springs. Thunder Basin will be at home to meet defending 4A champion Sheridan, who beat Cheyenne South by 79 last week. South will be looking to break a super long losing streak, and they will host Cheyenne East on Friday. And East ran by Laramie last week, so Laramie goes to Casper to meet Kelly Walsh. And Kelly Walsh lost to Campbell County 34-0 last Friday. And the Camels, they will be headed to Cheyenne to meet Central this week. Division I volleyball, the Wyoming Cowgirls won both of their matches in the Omaha tournament over the weekend, beating good teams. On Friday, the Cowgirls posted a 5-set win over Washington State, 25-22, 19-25, 23-25, 25-17, and 15-11. Washington State made the NCAA tournament a year ago. And for UW, Kelly Walsh grad Abby Milby had 8 kills. On Saturday, the Cowgirls beat Omaha, who also made it to the NCAA tournament a year ago in 3 straight, 25-23, 25-18, 31-29. We had 8 kills in that match, too. And the Cowgirls will be on the road in Ohio for a tournament this weekend, hosted by Akron and Cleveland State. And that's it in sports.
So while you're sitting there in that casino in Deadwood talking to me, and don't worry, there's other people talking to themselves, so you're just fine. Are the people gambling?
There's 3.
Okay.
I mean, it is, what time is it? It's 8:45 in the morning. I mean, and I know people who have gambled that they would come to casinos, and have a cup of coffee and gamble in the morning, and it's not nearly as crowded. You almost got the whole place to yourself, and then, go and do something else. So, I mean, it's kind of cool. It really is.
When you say 8:45, I guess you're on the other side of because it's 7:45 here.
Oh, it's 7:45. No. I'm in the same time zone you are.
I kind of figured you were. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Physically, but not mentally.
Not mentally. No, you're on vacation. You should be You should be in a whole another week. For that matter.
Well, okay. I'm doing the best I can, Glenn.
Take your time. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business we have to take care of. So there's a lot of environmental groups out there that want us to blow up every single dam that we have, whether we're producing electricity with it or not, because we've got to save the fish. Not kidding. We'll talk about it next. Wake Up Wyoming. Made a really bad decision, but I saved it at the last minute. I almost wasn't able to talk to you. Hang on, I'll explain.
Today's show is sponsored by Rabid Penguin Spray, the only spray guaranteed to keep dangerous rabid penguins at bay.
You'd never know when you might run across one of those. If you wonder what would keep me from talking to you, hang on, I did something really stupid. But hang on, I know you want to hear this. It's open phones at this time.
Warning. Wake Up Wyoming is about to enter daily open phones. This means that anyone will be allowed to call in and talk about anything. I mean, imagine if we actually allowed you on air to say anything you wanted. Scary, right? Well, we're just that brand of crazy. If you are offended by what other people think, then maybe you want to tune out right about now. Just saying. If you should choose to call, just remember, the more funny and interesting you are, the longer Glenn will keep you on the line. Obnoxious jerks will be hung up on. Dave, all right, strap in, and let's do this thing.
888-97 Woods, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOOD. So while you were listening to that news and information break, I noticed that I'm feeling a little bit hungry here, and it is important, it really is, that I make sure I keep a certain level of substance going when I'm on the air, because what I'm doing, it's 4 hours of this, And so, I found myself sometimes just decided, I'll just eat later. And then I start getting spots in front of my eyes while I'm on the air. Good idea to keep a little snackage over here. So nothing bad, just, I need a little snack going on. So I decided while you were listening to news, hey, I'm going to go ahead and take that little English muffin over there, and I'm going to put some peanut butter on it. Sounds like a great idea, right? A little something to wash it down. Sounds good, right? Until I look at the clock and realize that I have to go on the air in like seconds. And here I have with a big wad of peanut butter going in my mouth, and I got to go on the air. Picture it this way. Have you ever taken peanut butter and put it on the roof of a dog's mouth? Okay. So that's what I was dealing with. And the clock is ticking. And I got to get on the air. So I managed to clear the passages and then turn on the mic and say hi to you guys at the last possible second. I almost was sitting there thinking, what am I going to do here? Because the music's going to come to an end and I got to talk, and there's no way with all this peanut butter going. So I'm thinking from now on, when I'm on the air, if I need a little bit of something to make it through to the end of the show, it can't be peanut butter. That would be a bad thing. I'm not going to do that anymore. All right, so wanted to talk to you about dams in America. Pardon my French. But there's a problem a while ago. Let's go back to when we first started making hydroelectric dams. And we made them to make electricity, obviously, right? A great way to make electricity. It is clean. We certainly could use the reservoirs and collection of water for all sorts of things. I mean, a dam is just nothing but a win-win all around. It's one of the smartest things we ever did. We did have a problem, though. There are things like salmon, for example. They got to swim upstream in order to spawn. And they would get to the dam and try to swim up the pipe and get caught there in the turbine. A lot of salmon died, and they weren't able to spawn. And so, for a time, the salmon population was greatly, in danger. And so engineers started to take a look at this. Now, I remember this problem when I was a kid. And engineers started talking about building fish ladders, making a system that the fish could not swim up into the turbine, but also make a fish ladder so the fish could continue their spawning exercises and we wouldn't drive the salmon extinct. Sounds good, right? Okay. But environmentalists can't let it go. There have been several dams in America that have been destroyed because environmentalists think that dams are bad for the environment. But wind and solar killing a bunch of birds is okay, right? Well, hang on. I'm going to get to the latest. I got a piece from John Stossel about this because environmentalists aren't letting go and they want dams destroyed. Yeah, it's a whole new level of stupid, and they keep pushing it. But I'm going to pause that for a minute because James in Casper wants to talk to us about carbon sequestration. Morning, James.
Glenn, good morning.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think you're spot on with your comments about the foolishness of attempting to pull CO2 out of the atmosphere and stick it in the ground. It's incredibly expensive. And a few years ago, I sat down and did some basic calculations. And if you try to sequester, say, the volume of Casper Mountain, given that it's about 15 miles long, say a mile and a half, 2 miles wide, and about 3,000 feet tall. So if you think of a rectangular cube, if you will, of that volume, and figure out how much CO2 that would be, and how much it would cost to sequester, say, a ton of CO2, put the volume of Casper Mountain in the ground would be right around $20 to $25 billion. Which is way more than the state's budget. And the way I would share this with people is have them go on Google Earth, and, of course, close up at low altitude. Casper Mountain looks pretty impressive. But as you zoom out, even Casper Mountain compared to Natrona County is fairly insignificant. But then if you zoom out to include the whole state, that volume of CO2 would be absolutely minuscule, much less compared to the rest of the country, the hemisphere, or our entire planet Earth. So the numbers may have changed about the cost of sequestering a ton of CO2. I mean, there's so much that goes into that. But let's just say, for sake of argument, and if somebody has other numbers, I think we'd all love to hear them. But let's say anywhere from $20 to $25 billion to sequester that volume of CO2, to take that out of the air and stuff it in the ground and try to keep it there, which is next to impossible to do.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's take also the cost. What James was talking about here earlier this morning, I was talking about this plant that was supposed to be put up in southwest Wyoming that was supposed to suck CO2 directly out of the air. And they've decided not to do it, at least here in Wyoming, because there's all of these other companies that are going to be building here, tech companies. And they're going to be using so much of the wind and solar, there's not going to be much left. And by the way, James, this would take an enormous amount of electricity to suck a small amount of CO2 out of the air. And then what do they do with it once they got it? Like you said, pump it into the ground. It doesn't stay in the ground. So all of this money is supposed to be made by carbon credits. The idea... Yeah. So in other words, James, if you owned a company and your company is producing a large amount of CO2, then you pay this other company carbon credit money to suck CO2 out of the air to offset what you're doing. That way you can live guilt-free. That was the whole, that's their business model, James. So why not just go ahead and plant some more trees or something like that, if that's what they're doing?
Well, absolutely, Ben. Yeah, your comments this morning, like I said, were spot on. And one thing that I don't think a lot of these folks who are in favor of decarbonization, as they call it, I don't think that they realize that once you start increasing CO2 in the atmosphere, of course, plants start to grow.
Yeah.
They become much more lush. And one interesting detail, I mean, there's a lot of things that plants start doing with more CO2. They start processing water much more efficiently, which is part of the reason that they can grow much more lush. Of course, CO2 is plant food, but they're better with water management than they are when they're carbon deprived. So it's a win-win if you just, in this case, I think, leave Mother Nature alone, put some more trees in the ground. They're great. We need more here in Wyoming. But don't spend, billions and billions of dollars trying to put this in the ground, because as we found out in the oil field, when you do carbon injection, you have to put it in as a liquid. CO2 is very unusual stuff compared to what I think most people are accustomed to understanding, and it tends to try to find ways out because it's under quite a bit of pressure. And I believe it was up in Midwest where they did some CO2 injection, and it started coming back out of the ground. So it's tough to keep it where you want it to stay.
What I've read so far, James, and I've done a lot of searching for articles from all over the globe, not just here in Wyoming, any place where they've ever tried to sequester CO2 underground hasn't worked. It always gets away. So I don't know what their plan is at this point.
Well, their plan is to scam people and make a lot of money off something that I really have to think these engineers and scientists know is not going to work.
Right.
But it's a way to scam money. I mean, this carbon credits thing is a remarkable way to put money in their pockets by taking it out of ours. So, good work on the sequestration. Glenn, I appreciate hearing that in the morning, but I'm out on my drive.
All right. Thank you for calling, James. That was good information from you, too. I appreciate it. Well, for that matter, let's talk about why you don't need to sequester CO2. This is Dr. Patrick Moore, who was a co-founder of Greenpeace.
Projected CO2 level in the absence of human emissions, there it goes through that red line, everything dies. It could be 1 million years from now or 2, but that's not very long in the situation of life's history. So life would have killed itself inadvertently by creating armor plating in the sea. And we inadvertently are replenish it by finding fossil fuels and making cement. We didn't know that we were doing this positive role. But basically, my paper, The Positive Influence of Human CO2 Emissions on the Survival of Life on Earth, is available on the internet. And it goes through the whole story. And we are life's savior, salvation, not its destroyer. Because it would have gone down if we had not intervened, if we had not stopped the continuous sedimentation of calcium carbonate on the ocean floor.
And again, that was Dr. Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace. Let's see, there's Jake. Thanks for writing in. Jake just sent me this text. Glenn, comment on the gentleman talking about CO2 sequestration. Anadarko did this in the Salt Creek field from the oil produced, then injected it back into the ground, therefore increasing oil production, which is a good way to use CO2. They then sold the technology rights and fields to Denbury, who then sold still uses it today. At that point, it makes it worth it and can be changed to private, sustainability-based and increased productions. They are still doing this in several locations around Wyoming. Not sure what to do with the leakage, though. Now, I do know collecting CO2 and injecting it to try to get more petroleum is a great idea. But no, it never stays in the ground like they want it to. And it's a dumb idea to want it to in the first place. All right, I have coming up next a little bit to play for you about environmentalists who want to get rid of all of the hydroelectric dams across America for environmental reasons, they think.
Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get started for you today?
Yeah, can I just get a cheeseburger?
Okay, is that going to be offered today?
Yeah, it's going to be offered today.
All right, it's going to be $378.19.
Actually, I don't need the cheese. You can take the cheese off.
No cheese?
Yeah, let's do no cheese. No cheese.
All right, that brings your total down to $312.17.
That sounds better. All
right, and are you going to be paying in full or will you be financing?
Yeah, I'll be financing today.
Okay.
Let's do the finance.
All right, and after interest, your total will be $61 a month for 6 months.
All right.
First window, please. Thank you.
Glenn Woods. He talks to you, not at you. Be part of the show at 888-97-WOODS. This is Wake Up Wyoming on K2 Radio.
8:24 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. Okay, I want to play this bit for you from John Stossel, one of my favorite all-time broadcast heroes. This has to do with environmentalists, or so they call themselves anyway, who want to blow up hydroelectric dams in order to save the planet, because they think it's wrecking the environment. The cleanest form of energy you can get is a hydroelectric dam, but they think it's destroying the planet. Here we go.
Politicians want to destroy dams and their hydropower. The federal government recommending swift action on the lower Snake River dams.
Removing 4 dams.
We need to breach those dams, and we need to do it now. Now's the time. Our fish are on the line.
Activists claim the dams threaten the Snake River. They call it
the most endangered river in this country.
Because they say the dams are
decimating the salmon population.
It's true that pregnant fish need to swim upriver to have their babies. And now there are dams in the way. But still, today, most fish pass. How?
Well, there are ladders on the dams that allow passage.
Todd Myers of the Washington Policy Center has worked for decades on salmon recovery.
New innovative surface passage structures for fish.
And fish ladders that help fish get past the dams.
We have made so much progress that we can have salmon recovery and the electricity it provides.
But using the word recover makes it sound like there was this horrible decimation.
There was.
When dams were first built, without the innovations that keep fish away from the turbines, lots of salmon were killed. But that's no longer true.
Between 96 and 98% of the salmon successfully pass each dam.
But gullible media still repeat the activist claims.
The salmon population near extinction.
That's simply not true. All you have to do is to go and look at the actual population numbers to know that that's absurd.
In recent years, salmon numbers have been higher than they were in the 80s or 90s. But somehow, government media claim
salmon numbers are so low that tribal biologists say some species have reached a quasi-extinction threshold.
They make these claims because they know people will believe them.
Just sounds right.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even need to check it. They just absolutely believe it.
Extinction of salmon are unacceptable.
They've never been closer to extinction than they are today.
People don't want to believe that their favorite environmental group is dishonest.
This is something that I picked up in so many different topics, something that was either fixed a long time ago or disproven a long time ago, and yet it just keeps getting repeated. So let's review. Was there a problem with salmon not being able to swim upstream and spawn because of hydroelectric dams. Yes, we did cause a problem. Did we fix the problem? Yes, decades ago. And to this day, environmentalists are still pushing this idea and want to get rid of hydroelectric dams in order to save fishes. Okay, well, what exactly are we supposed to do for power here? You don't want coal. You don't want natural gas. You hate nuclear. Hydroelectric dams, you want to save the fish. But you don't care if wind turbines kill a bunch of birds. And you don't care about the environmental damage that solar panels do, especially when you build massive solar fields. Don't care about that. What exactly are we supposed to do here? I'd love to hear an explanation. Please, tell me. What's your explanation of what we're supposed to do here? And even when we find a problem and solve the problem and then show them, see, we solved the problem, they still don't believe it. That's the part that gets me. To have someone walk up and show them the evidence, look, we solved that problem. It was a problem. We fixed the problem. We're good now. And they still refuse to believe it. And then push for these changes anyway. What do you do with that? Other than to make sure that these people never get into any positions of power. I don't know what to do with the news media on this either, because the news media continues to repeat the same stories without actually ever fact-checking anything. They claim to be the fact-checkers, yet they're just about the worst at it, if not the worst. Coming up on 8:30, local news coming your way after local news update on the weather forecast. You and I get back into it again with a nice long segment of open phones. 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about. You can go ahead and change the subject. That's fine with me. I'll just kind of roll with the whole thing. It's Wake Up Wyoming.
The only show broadcasting from a bunker under Devil's Tower. Hey, it's cold down here. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods, 6 a.m. weekdays on AM 1030 and FM 95.1.
Wake Up Wyoming. Everett is in Gillette. Morning, Everett. He says, and regarding the environmentalists, or so they call themselves environmentalists, who want to get rid of coal, gas, oil, and nuclear, and then also hydroelectric dams because they think those are bad too. But we'll keep the wind turbines up there chopping birds up because that's okay. And solar farms can cover massive amounts of acreage and harm wildlife that way, but that's okay. Everett and Gillette, we'll go back to burning whale fat, liposuction on whales, just enough to make them healthy. I think that's perfect, yeah. Because you've seen people who were fat as a whale, so, hey, there's an idea, Everett. And what if we start to liposuction all these fat Americans that are out there, which there are a lot of, and we use that fat instead? Or we find all of these so-called environmentalists and just, well, they're a bunch of fat heads. So there's loads of fat we can suck out of those skulls and just burn that for fuel. There's an idea, too. All right, now, if the Democrats win not just the presidency, but the House and Senate, expect your taxes to go up. The story says it goes like this. Republicans pass huge tax cuts that are, at first, only temporary. By the time the tax cuts are set to end, Americans will have to, well, they would have become used to owning less to the government. You owe a lot less to the government now, no matter who you are, because of tax cuts from back in the Trump administration. Hesitant to raise taxes, Democrats join with Republicans to continue many of the cuts indefinitely. Now, to liberals, the story says, this cycle is to blame for a range of social and economic ills. Inequality, for example, ballooning deficits, a federal government without resources to pay for their progressive agenda. That's because much of the largest Republican tax cut in 2017, the law signed by President Trump, will expire after 2025. Progressive tax experts, let's put that in quotes, experts, and activists, that's better, activists, has spent years organizing to convince the Democrat Party that rather than simply extending the cuts, it needs to ensure the United States brings in more tax revenue so it can finance more of their social programs. Now, this goes back to, I had a guest on the show a couple of years ago, I guess, from a think tank in Washington, D.C. In the think tank, he wrote an article, this guest I had, that said that Wyoming needed to start charging more taxes, higher taxes, to oil companies, for example, as one example. Because, well, around the country, there's other places where oil companies are charged more in taxes for what they extract. Wyoming doesn't charge enough, and we're leaving a lot of money on the table that we should be taxing them. And my answer to this guy, after hearing him out, I said, if it ever occurred to you that perhaps your government is spending way too much money, they don't need more in taxes, they just need to cut back? His answer was, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. And in 20 years, it never has struck you that perhaps government is just spending way too much money. And also wasting too much money when you look at government waste. But okay. No, it never occurred to him. Story says, while a President, Kamala Harris, I'm sorry, you just threw up in your mouth a little bit, I know, has pledged to raise taxes on high-income Americans and corporations, her presidential campaign has also said she would not raise any taxes on households making less than $400,000 a year. That means she, too, wants to continue much of President Trump's tax cuts. Quote, they've already lost that battle. According to a gentleman who works with a tax office, no, the think tank. For progressives to win the battle that they think they've been losing, they would have to convince the president and Congress to significantly tax the middle class as well as taxing the rich, which they already do, by the way. Story says taxes are the price for a functional society, period, according to progressives. The rich need to get used to being active contributors to society that allow them to get wealthy and stay wealthy. This goes back to that myth that they don't pay their fair share. So, I don't know where to start, but here we go. The rich are already active contributors. They pay an overwhelming majority of federal taxes in our country. The top 1% pay far more than anybody, not just in dollar amount, but in percentage as well. The rich do not hoard and wine. That's hoard and wine. They produce things that other people use, and they create jobs. I've said this before. A guy with, let's say he's worth $5 billion, does not have a vault somewhere with $5 billion sitting in it. They're worth $5 billion because that's what they produce. If they start producing less, they'll be worth less. Politicians have already turned much of the U.S. budget to those who are, well, not on the money end of the spectrum. We have a Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid that make up a large percentage of the federal and state budget. It's a massive redistribution of wealth. High taxes are not given in America. We had if we had no income tax until the Civil War. Then that only lasted about a decade. It didn't return and wasn't passed until the 16th Amendment in 1913. But even then, that was only on the very, very top percentile. Now, let's take a look at who doesn't pay income tax. And the rich definitely pay a massive amount of that. I can get into more about who really does pay taxes, but I think you get the idea. Much of what you hear the Democrats say is absolutely wrong. The moral of the story, or the gist of what I'm trying to get at, is if we do wind up at the end of this election with a Democrat House and Senate and a Democrat president, then we wind up with higher taxes. Not just because the Trump tax cuts expire, but because of what progressives want to do to get more and more money. And even if they did just try to tax the rich, you know that does end up taxing everybody else too. It doesn't just stay where the rich is. It ends up on everybody else. If you know about where taxes come from and how it's used by the government, then you know that that's the case. Everybody, in fact, I love it when they say, we're going to have universal health care and we're going to get the rich to pay for it. Well, there's not enough money there to get the rich to pay for all of that. We can go to places like the UK and go up to Canada and find that they don't just tax the rich to pay for their government-run health care. They tax everybody across the board. They tax absolutely everybody. So this is what happens if we wind up, once again, with a Democrat-controlled House and Senate and President. At least now in the House of Representatives, it's controlled by Republicans that can put a stop to a lot of this. So much cannot get done. So much that Democrats want to get done. Even in the state of Wyoming, Democrats here in the state of Wyoming would love to have an income tax for the state. They like the idea of raising more taxes rather than letting people who have earned the money keep the money that they've earned. But again, that's more government control over your property, which your money's your property too, by the way, and more government control over you, and all these government programs that are supposed to solve problems that they never solve. Waiting for the day that people finally start to, especially on the progressive side, finally start to realize that the way to solve problems is not through more spending in government programs. That's what caused the problems in the first place. 8:45, wake up.
This program is intended for immature audiences only. Wake Up Wyoming with Glenn Woods. Weekdays at 6 on air, on Alexa, and 24/7 on the Wake Up Wyoming app.
Wake Up Wyoming. Off we go to talk to Frank Gambino, who's out on a little bit of a vacation, sort of, somewhat, kind of, and has been sitting in a casino in Deadwood, South Dakota, talking to us. When you're not talking to us, Frank, what have you been doing?
I've been wandering around, and I haven't lost any money yet. Then again, I haven't made any money either.
Yes.
So, they have low banquet rooms, and I go watch TV, and
wow,
try to people watch. I've had a couple cups of coffee. It's pretty. Okay. The gamblers are starting to get here. I mean, they're normally geriatric type gamblers,
Okay.
So that's the way it is.
So this is what you do with your time off.
Right, until the rest of the world elects to call me and say, okay, this is what we're doing today.
Oh, okay. So you're just waiting for everybody else to get it. Then again, you're not as bad as me, but you're an early riser. So you're
right. Not by choice, really, but by necessity.
Yeah. Okay. So you're up way before the rest of the family, and the family's probably going to sleep into the crack of noon before they decide to have breakfast with you.
I know. Yeah. You know what? But actually, it's not bad. It's actually raining here in Deadwood a little bit.
Oh,
so,
good. Okay.
You give time for a little bit of rain, soak things over, and then we will go explore.
Okay. Now, real quick before we get into the sports thing with you, just looking around the room real quick, what personality type shows up way early in the morning to go gambling before the rest of the world wakes up? What do these people look like?
Well, they're probably senior citizens for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Retired.
Yeah.
Maybe I would say that'd be it. I mean, the older you are, the earlier you get up.
Yeah.
And you might as well hit a machine while you still can. So I would say mostly older.
Okay, and they're sitting there at these machines, pushing these buttons, waiting for something to happen.
Right, and sometimes they'll hit a big one, and sometimes they won't.
Okay.
You'll know you'll hit when they hit a big one. The machine goes ding ding ding.
Yes,
ding,
and then they scream. If you ever see me sitting in front of one of those machines pushing buttons, I want you to grab some kind of a club and come up behind me and just let me have it.
You know what? I could also whisper in your ear, like, do you have better things to do with your life?
Yeah, that would be, that's one of the reasons I don't walk into those places in the first place. So.
All righty, in high school football, it's the second week of the season for the 4A schools coming up on Friday. Casper Natrona, after posting a home win over Thunder Basin, will visit Rock Springs on Friday night. And Thunder Basin, they'll have their home opener to meet defending 4A champion Sheridan. And the Bronx beat Cheyenne South by 79 last week. Yeah, 79. South will be looking to break that super long losing streak. They will host Cheyenne East on Friday. East ran by Laramie last week at the Oakey-Brancer Stadium. And then Laramie, they're going to be on the road to Casper to meet Kelly Walsh for their home opener. And KW lost big to Campbell County last Friday. Campbell County headed to Cheyenne to meet Central this week. College football, the Wyoming Cowboys will try to rebound from that brutal performance last week at Arizona State to host the Idaho Vandals on Saturday afternoon in Laramie. Cowboys look bad in just about every area except punting in that 48-7 loss to the ASU to start the season. So there's going to be a lot of looks in the mirror. They're going to have to circle the wagons, all those cliches, but they do need to display massive improvement to give fans and themselves some hope moving forward. So everyone needs to play better, that's obvious, and the coaches need to coach better, that's obvious, because, among other things, Idaho is on a pushover. Last week, they lost to third-rated Oregon 24-14 on the road. They were picked to finish third in the preseason Big Sky Conference Bowl. Vandals were 9-4 a year ago and made the quarterfinal round of the FCS playoffs. They had one of the best defenses in that division last year and returned all four of the defensive linemen. However, their starting quarterback was hurt in the Oregon game, so he will be out, and they're going to go with their second stringer. Right now, the Cowboys are 8-point favorites in the game, and it's a 1:30 start on Saturday in Laramie. I have that for you on K2 Radio in Casper and KOWB in Laramie. Division I volleyball, the Wyoming Cowgirls went 2-0 in that Omaha tournament over the weekend. They beat Washington State in 5 grueling sets, and Washington State made the NCAA tournament a year ago. Kelly Walsh High School grad Abby Milby had 8 kills in that match for UW, and on Saturday, Cowgirls beat Omaha in 3 straight, and Milby had another 8 kills in that match, and the Cowgirls will be on the road in Ohio for a tournament this weekend, hosted by Akron and Cleveland State. And that's it in sports for now.
Okay, for now. So, you're gone, let's see, the rest of this week. You're back Monday, I guess, right? You covering any sports while you're there? Or are you just hanging out with the whole family?
I'm gonna actually, on the way back on Friday, I'm gonna hit Gillette.
Yes.
For a football game, and then there's also a volleyball tournament there, too.
Oh, okay. So, boy, you've been doing a whole lot of driving here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd rather do it now while the roads are clear.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
As opposed to November and December.
Definitely do, I would say, if you haven't done it, do the Needles Highway. That's one of the prettiest drives up there. And challenging, too.
That is cool, isn't it? That is really cool.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Frank. Coming up on some local business that we got to take care of. And then we're going to roll into news time after that national local update on the weather forecast. You and I get back into it. It is open phone. So 888-97 Woods the phone number. That's 888-97 WOODS. It's Wake Up Wyoming. 9:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. It is a Wednesday, and over the hump we go.
Today's show is sponsored by Rabid Penguin Spray, the only spray guaranteed to keep dangerous rabid penguins at bay.
And you never know when you might be walking down the sidewalk and there's a rabid penguin.
Warning, this show contains reference to guns, liberty, limited government, low taxation, the cult of climate change, free thinking, cigar smoking, short people, rubber chickens, Karen's bureaucracy, liberal buzzwords, tour runs, traffic, toilets, terrible jokes, and more. No apologies will be issued. Guest callers may express any opinion they want without fear of being canceled. Unless you're a loudmouth jerk like Dave, then Glenn will hang up on you. Strap in, hold on to your coffee, and feel free to participate.
This disclaimer does not refer to every person named Dave. Just one particular Dave from San Francisco. We know a lot of Daves. They call this show all the time, and they're great people. So don't call this program and complain that we use your name. That would be a real Dave move, Dave.
And as long as I'm opening up the phones, let's talk to Renee Redding, who's running for school board in the Natrona County area. Morning, Renee.
Good morning, Glenn. How are you?
Life is grand. What you got for me?
Well, I was just calling to let your listeners know I am currently running for Natrona County School Board trustee with 3 other people. There is a slate of 5. There are 5 seats opening are open this November. So there are currently 4 of us running. Myself, Sarah Bieber, Albert Hall, and Cheyenne Houston. And we are having a meet and greet, so you can come out and meet the candidates. This will be September 10th at the hangar in Bar None. And that will be from 6:30 to 8:30, I believe. So.
And the hangar's a great place to have it. 6:30 till...
I know. Yeah. Well, I apologize. It's 6 to 8. But
6 to 8 o'clock. So. Okay. At the Hangar Restaurant, one of my favorite hangouts out there. Okay. Well, let me know how it turns out.
Thank you. Yeah, people can come in, just ask us the questions. Let us answer them for you. We're not afraid to answer the hard questions out there, and we are the conservative slate, so we just encourage everybody to come out and talk to us.
And it is important. One thing you can do in Wyoming that you can't do in many other places is actually meet the people who are running for office. So take an opportunity to talk to them, especially because it's your school board. All right.
That's right.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you so much, Glenn.
Sure, absolutely. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can talk about what I'm talking about or change the subject, fine by me. So I come across this article. It's titled, 4 Things Congress Could Do to Avert a Government Shutdown. And I'm thinking, again, not surprised, but here we go again. Once again, your government is running low on money. They're about to hit a stage of another government shutdown. And when they do temporarily solve this problem, we'll be given a deadline for the next shutdown. So, okay, here's what we do according to this article. First off, fix the duration of the continuing resolution. There's a bipartisan backing behind a continuing resolution that would keep government funded at current levels beyond the November election, when either side could gain significant leverage in funding talks. But some Republicans in the House and Senate are bullish on Trump. Proponents of the idea argue the bill could help prevent Congress from being jammed with a year-end funding package, combining all 12 government funding bills for the next fiscal year. That would give them what they needed. I got a better idea than any of these ideas. I'll tell you in just a moment. Next one, proof of citizenship voting bill. There's a growing push for House conservatives to attach legislation for stricter proof of citizenship requirements for voting. But any funding that includes the measure almost certainly wouldn't be able to pass Congress at this time, so don't do it at this time. All right. Spending levels. Hardline conservatives are still upset about spending levels set in place by the by a pair of major spending packages that passed with bipartisan support earlier this year. Quote, look, my problem is a continuing resolution just keeps the same spending in place, and you end up with an omnibus bill, which is a huge bill that nobody has read, and yet they're forced to vote on it essentially by their parties. And then it talks about Congress failed to pass legislation before leaving town last month to address roughly $3 billion in shortfalls for veterans and things like this. Okay. This article I'm reading is garbage. Let's see who wrote it. Let's go all the way back up to, this is from The Hill. Okay. Here's what we do. Government, once again, your government is running out of money again. And that's been happening for a very long time. Now, here's what they could do, but they won't do, but they could do in order to solve this problem. 1, seriously cut spending. See, the author of the article never thought of that. Seriously cut back on wasteful, useful, idiotic programs. Cut way back. 1. 2, actually set a budget. There, you're done. Did I miss anything? Because if they seriously cut back on spending as one, right, and then they actually set a budget, would that fix the problem? Do you think? I mean, I think so. Here's how out of control it is.
You know Rand Paul, every year he comes out with a Festivus report, and it highlights government waste and government spending. I want to read a couple of these for you and get your reaction. How does that sound?
Okay.
$6 million to boost Egyptian tourism.
Well worth it, I would say. Yeah. So every penny, yeah.
$2.7 million NIH grant studying Russian cats on treadmill studies.
Cats on a treadmill?
Cats on treadmills. That's something I think the American people really want to know about.
Well worth the taxpayers' dollars on that, I'd have said. Yeah.
We spent $8,395 on a lobster tank for the Department of Defense.
I don't think a lobster tank is crucial to the fabric of our society.
$236 billion in improper federal payments,
$660 billion in interest on our federal debt.
$477,000 transgender monkey study.
What do you think about that one?
I mean, $500,000, a small price to pay to get that kind of information.
That's a real thing.
Yes. You think our government spends our tax dollars good or no?
No.
Why not?
No, they're spending more money on animals than us.
Not just any animals, transgender monkeys. How does that make you feel as an American taxpayer?
You can't think about it because your mind would explode.
There's way too much waste. I was in the military. We paid hundreds of dollars for a bolt.
Both my parents were federal government workers, and they saw firsthand the absolute waste. It was always a use it or lose it budget, the terrible policy.
How do we solve this? Do you think the government has gotten too big and we need to shrink it?
I think that there needs to be more checks and balances about spending for sure. I mean, we do need government. We do need government services. We do need the government to spend money.
I mean, politicians are always interested in their voters. I mean, they're going to always appease their districts no matter what because they want to stay in Congress and stay in power.
Military spending. I mean, this is like insane here what you guys spend, Americans spend on military.
And I disagree. I think we don't spend nearly enough on military. I think our military is depleted. We have to spend a lot more. Things like Department of Education should be abolished on the federal level. I think it all belongs to the states.
And might seem a little pessimistic, but I don't really think that we have much say in how the government spends a lot of that money.
Isn't America supposed to be, run by the people for the people?
That's a great question. Yes.
I don't know how you stop it. I really don't.
I think step one is shrinking the government. I know it's easier said than done.
Good luck.
Our founding fathers, when they had a 2% tax on tea, we had a revolution against you guys. And now we're paying 40% in taxes, and we're sitting back and nobody's saying anything about it.
I think you should just make America British again. I think that's that. Instead of MAGA, you want MABA hats.
Not MAGA hats, but MABA hats is what he wants.
You either buckle down and do your work, or you'll end up at McDonald's.
We going to McDonald's if I don't do my work?
No. So many opinions, we had to build the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app to hold them all. Free download from AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:21 is the time. Wake Up Wyoming. All right, 888-97 was the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. So every so often, some kind of a study comes out telling you that you have to panic about something. There's something, whatever it might be. There's something that's in your house or in your car or you're wearing on your clothes or something you're eating is going to kill you. Remember the whole bit about mobile phones giving you brain cancer? Okay. Did that happen? What do the numbers say? Here's a headline for you. Mobile phones won't give you brain cancer. 28 years of research says. A review, the story says, into the potential health effects of radio waves exposure show mobile phones are not linked to brain cancer. It hasn't happened. The review was commissioned by the World Health Organization and was published by the journal Environmental International. Mobile phones are often held against the head during use, and they emit radio waves, type of a non-ionizing radiation. There are two factors, or largely why the idea of mobile phones might cause brain cancer came about in the first place. First possibility was that mobile phones might cause cancer has been long-standing concern with a lot of wireless tech in general. Over the years, the scientific consensus has remained strong. There is no association between mobile phone radio waves and cancer. Okay. I don't like the idea of consensus being in the story because if you know anything about science, the consensus doesn't exist. There can be a large agreement, but just because most scientists agree doesn't mean it's necessarily right. Despite that, though, in 2011, the International Agency for Research classified radio waves exposure as a possible carcinogen to human. The meaning of this classification was largely misunderstood. That's where the whole thing came from. Okay. Story goes on, but you get the idea. There's no association, it continues to say over and over again. All right, now, this goes with me, a lot of other things that I've heard over the years. Microwave ovens. I've known people who are afraid of microwave ovens because, well, I mean, you're nuking your food, right? I've had people say that. You're not nuking anything, just so you know. Most of you are aware of this, but just for those who aren't, all a microwave is high-frequency radio waves. That's it. It was invented by a guy that was using microwaves. He was tasked with the job of finding a good way to communicate with radio waves for the military. And while working with microwaves, he had some chocolate in his pocket that melted. And he thought, Now, that didn't lead to the invention of the oven by him. Somebody else invented the oven. But he did notice, hey, look what happens. I mean, you can cook stuff with this. All right, so all it is, you've heard of short wave. The radio wave is elongated. And then there's the microwave, which is the opposite of that. The radio waves are really close together. High frequency, in other words. And if you aim the high frequency at food, the molecules inside vibrate really fast, and there's heated food. There you go. That's it. So is anything dangerous happening? Nothing. No, not a thing. They also make sure you can look at this when you put something in your microwave and you close the door and the light's on in there while it cooks. You can see a Faraday cage, which also helps any other radio waves to get out to harm you. So you're good with microwaves. But I remember when they first came around, you were told, now, got to watch these microwave things. People are going to get sick and die. And I know people who will not eat food. Not a lot of people, but a few people who will not eat food that was warmed up in a microwave or even cooked in a microwave. Because this is what they were told when they first came out. Now, add this to a long list of other things that we could talk about that you were told that were harmful and was going to kill us. And I bet you can come up with a long list of things that were harmful and was going to kill us all if we didn't watch it. And none of that came to fruition. So when somebody does, this is what I do. When someone comes out with something, we'll call it a study of some kind. Such and such is harmful. Such and such is going to kill you. I like to step back a little bit and ask the question, really, you sure about that? Are you sure that's as dangerous as you're saying? Let's go look at the evidence before we draw that conclusion. But remember what I've always said about news media. News media doesn't report news. They report controversy and hype. And when they cannot find it, they will create it. So when a news headline comes around that says that something is dangerous, that's going to get reported. When a news headline comes around and says it's perfectly okay to do that, then they probably won't report it because it's not a sexy headline that's going to get them a lot of traffic, which is what they're looking for. And traffic goes way back to the days of newspaper headlines when we had newspapers, and they were screaming headlines to try to get you to buy that newspaper. Today, people are getting the news off of their cell phones, and so they still need that screaming headline to get you to stop and look at it, but even more so, to get you to click on it and spend some time swiping through and reading it. And then if you can like it, oh, that's huge. But here's what they're really after. If you share that story, wow. So news organizations go after the hottest headlines they possibly can. And who necessarily cares if it's true? As long as the headline is really hot, they'll go ahead and publish it. There have been so many studies, and let's put those in quotes, studies over the years, about things that were supposed to be harmful to you that turned out in the end were perfectly okay. And to this day, there are still people who think that some of these things are harmful. This goes back to a story I was covering earlier this morning about environmentalists who want to get rid of all hydroelectric dams because we're destroying the fish population, which turns out is not at all true. There was a problem in the beginning, but we fixed it, so that's not true anymore, but they still repeat the same thing. And news organizations don't bother to correct them because they need that hot headline. So, yeah, your microwave is fine. Your cell phone is fine. Your plastic straw is okay. Americans do not use 500 million straws a day, as was reported, and most of them do not wind up in the ocean. as was reported. Okay. So the time that the news organizations spend looking for the next panic issue to keep you on the hook, well, they do it all day, every day. Because, again, the more traffic they get, the more money they make. And they get traffic out of panicked headlines. So they'll keep coming up with this stuff. Coming up on local news, update on your weather forecast after that. Then you and I get back into it. 888-97-WOODS, the phone number. That's 888-97-WOODS. You can call in and change the subject you want or stick with it. So Wake Up Wyoming.
Listen to Glenn Woods anywhere you roam with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
9:36 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. So Bill, who's in Bill, Wyoming, says he only uses his microwave oven for cell phone storage. You know, there's another thing. I know your cell phones do give out a whole lot of data. But as far as what data is actually being used to track you, most people in government don't even know you exist. If they wanted to, they could. But there's a lot. In other words, there's a lot about cell phones, modern cell phones today, that's myth as well. And then a few things you have to worry about at the same time. Speaking of worrying about things, you know, the end is nigh, right?
So put on your respirator and let's fix that generator. While we're out, we'll mend our fences too. See, I'm not afraid of dying, just got reasons for surviving. I want one more day in the apocalypse with you.
So let's take a look at, the wettest summer ever. A lot of predictions have been made. We're supposed to have this horrible hurricane season, and so far we haven't. There's a couple of storms that built up out there, but for the most part, this has been a blah hurricane season. Not a lot has happened, despite predictions. And you were told even before we had a hot summer day that this was already the hottest summer ever. We did have some hot days around the globe here and there in certain spots, but overall this summer has been on the mild side. What about rain, though? What happened to the West summer? UK set, and this was the headline. Let's see, this is back in May. UK set for 50 days of rain in one of the wettest summers over 100 years. Okay. That was the forecast now, right? Forecasters are predicting a summer of persistent rain and wet weather for Brits as global warming continues, I'm reading from the story, to result in more erratic conditions. The Met Office briefed the government transport chiefs and so on. 50 days of rain. Sounds like 40 days and 40 nights to me, but all right. Last summer saw 40 days of rain. There you go. But the Met Office expects this summer to be even worse than ever before. All right. So far, they haven't had anywhere near this. Now, if you go all the way back to the year 1912, they had 55 days of straight rain. And people in Wyoming are going, really? That much, huh? Well, it's the UK. They get a lot more rain than we do. But again, the prediction was made, and everybody was supposed to watch out for it, and it didn't happen. Hottest summers on records for the past few years. Every year is supposed to be the next hottest summer on record, and yet that actually hasn't happened, despite the fact that they keep repeating it. But it hasn't happened. And again, this horrible hurricane season so far has been blah. All right. New England fishermen have staged a floating protest over the Martha's Vineyard wind sites. These are some of the wind towers that have massive blades. Like you think they're big blades in Wyoming on those wind turbines? Go take a look at the ones they have off the coast of New England states. And then some of these blades have fallen apart and all sorts of garbage from the blades just washing up on shore. So the author says, I'm continuing to keep an eye on the Vineyard Farms offshore blade failure near Nantucket. A week ago, the facility was closed because of the failure of newly installed wind turbines. One blade failed. It started with that and ended up in the water. And it cluttered the water with sharp fiberglass and other such material, which is not really optimum to be in the water there. All sorts of that junk just kept floating up on shore, causing all sorts of problems. Well, it's been more problems since then, to the point now. This weekend, a flotilla of last weekend, 24 commercial and recreational fishing vessels steamed to the wind farm to protest offshore wind development. The vessels, or as you would hear on Star Trek, the vessels, hosting an anti-offshore wind flag, blasting horns. It sounds like stuff liberals used to do. And still do to some extent. New Bedford, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, Rhode Island, along the Cape, all that area, they're going to see protests. They have already seen some. Quote, the blade collapse was an eye-opener to a lot of people who before didn't know that offshore wind disasters could happen in the ocean. But so I'm thinking of it this way. If you were to have an oil rig off the coast there and there was a spill, imagine the outrage from the environmentalists. Okay. So one wind turbine has lost one blade. And again, it's a massive blade. And it has caused a lot of garbage to wash up on shore. A lot. To the point that they shut down the beaches for a while and shut down all the wind turbines. That's how bad it was. Now, I want to know, where are the environmentalists on this, considering the kind of damage that it did that has to be cleaned up? I mean, you're thinking one blade, how much garbage could that be? They had to bring machines out to clean up the garbage. And even, it was not just the big stuff. There was a lot of big stuff that washed up, but there was a lot of little stuff. You can imagine the water being filled with fiberglass and other such stuff that make up the blade. And all of that stuff is floating around, which can be dangerous to people, but to marine life as well. So I have to ask again, where are the so-called environmentalists and animal rights activists on this? I would really like to know because, well, they'll be there if oil spills. Where are they on this? Big Red is in Hawk Springs. What do they say about winter weather? So far, I haven't heard a lot about winter weather, Big Red, but I know, of course, the environmentalists are going to predict some kind of disaster. I'm sure of it.
My world, everyone's a pony, and they all eat rainbows and poop butterflies.
That's beautiful, Katie.
Well, that image is going to stick with you all day. Local and mobile across Wyoming and beyond with the Wake Up Wyoming mobile app. This is AM 1030 K2 Radio.
And, of course, music being played for Frank Campino, who is on the road again. So, Frank, I've got to ask you a legal question, all right?
Legally, yes.
Yes, this is one you ought to know about. Are they allowed to come up with pumpkin spice stuff already?
It's already illegal.
Okay, good.
I mean, I think, let's see, I would wait until at least middle of October.
Okay, because already there's pumpkin spice M&Ms.
Oh, please stop.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's see. The 132nd version of M&Ms, which I didn't know that there were 132. There's even if you want a pumpkin pie flavored M&M. I don't know about that, but there is a pumpkin spice flavored M&M, depending on which one you want. I don't see too much difference between pumpkin pie and pumpkin spice.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is there any difference at all?
Yeah, okay. Now, here's the next thing that kind of gets me there, is someone's holding up a package, and it looks like a regular bag of M&Ms. It's just pumpkin colored, and the M&M is dressed up like a pumpkin.
Okay.
Holding a piece of pumpkin pie. That's on the package. All right, now, here's the part that I don't like. It says shareable size. All right, first off, I picked up a package. I've said this around Halloween. I picked up a package of M&Ms, and it says fun size, but it's so small I'm looking at wondering where the fun is.
Right, but there's only like 10 pieces of it.
Yes, and
even less.
That's not fun. Okay. Then when I pick up a bag that says shareable size, I'm looking at it thinking, I like you, Frank, but you're not getting a damn one. Okay?
And there's 100 in those.
Yes, that's not a shareable size. I'm sorry. That's like when you have Girl Scout cookies, the Thin Mints, serves 8. No, serves 8 minutes.
Right, yeah, one person eating 8.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah, okay. Well, at some point, speaking of cookies, they're going to come out. There is a pumpkin spice Oreo cookie that comes out.
Oh, please.
And I'm already seeing articles about pumpkin spice this and that, and I'm thinking, I think we should pass a law that they're not allowed to start this until October.
Glenn, I will tell you this.
Yeah.
If you have drink pumpkin spice or eat pumpkin spice and
Yes.
you get sick,
right,
you will never do it again.
But
That's my story.
Sounds like it's happened to you.
Yes, and I won't go near it ever again. All right, Division I volleyball. The Wyoming Cowgirls won both of their matches at the Omaha Invitational over the weekend. On Friday, the Cowgirls posted a 5-set win over Washington State, 25-22, 19-25, 23-25, 25-17, and 15-11. Washington State was an NCAA tournament team a year ago. Kelly Walsh High School grad Abby Milby had 8 kills in that match for UW. On Saturday, the Cowgirls beat Omaha, who also made the NCAA tournament a year ago, in 3 straight, 25-23, 25-18, and 31-29. Milby had 8 kills in that match, too. Cowgirls will be on the road in Ohio for a tournament this weekend hosted by Akron and Cleveland State. High school football, it's the second week of the season for the 4A schools coming up on Friday. Casper and Natrona, after posting a home win over Thunder Basin, will be on the road this week at Rock Springs. Thunder Basin will be at home on Friday to meet defending 4A champion Sheridan, who beat Cheyenne South by 79 last week. South will be looking to break a super long losing streak when they host Cheyenne East on Friday. East are ran by Laramie last week at the Oakey Blanchard Stadium, so Laramie now will go to Casper to meet Kelly Walsh on Friday, and KW lost big to Campbell County a week ago, and Campbell County will go to Cheyenne to meet Central for a Friday evening game. In college football, the Wyoming Cowboys will host Idaho on Saturday in Laramie. And they would have certainly liked to put that performance against Arizona State right in the rearview mirror as they lost 48-7. They were outplayed just about every phase except punting. So the Cowboys have to figure out, who they are, what they are, and why they are. And they need to, there's so many obvious things here. Need to play better. They need to coach better. They need to execute better. They need to just think better. And Idaho is not exactly a pushover. Last week they lost to third-rated Oregon 24-14 on the road, and they were picked to finish third in the preseason Big Sky Conference poll. So they won 9 games a year ago and made the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs. They had one of the best defenses a year ago and returned all 4 of their defensive linemen this year, but will have their backup quarterback in on Saturday as their starter got hurt in the Oregon game. So right now, UW 8-point favorites in the game. That'll be a 1:30 start on Saturday in Laramie, and we'll have it for you on K2 Radio in Casper and KOWB in Laramie. That's in the sports.
So it's a home game, so they need to do good.
Yes. Matter of fact, if the Cowboys lose, they should give everyone in the stands a free pumpkin spice something
or other. Yeah, no, that's what you do as punishment. That would, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that'd be the punishment. Yeah.
Pumpkin spice
or
beer.
Or the fans give the players
something like that. There you go. Yeah.
Spice, something.
They have to. Yeah. Okay. So hopefully they do well. Do you see them doing well this time?
You know what? I picked them to win last week. Yeah. So how the hell do I know it?
Don't say anything, Frank. You're jinxing them. Okay. All right, Frank. Have a good time out there. Coming up on some local business that we got to take care of. And news time after that. National local update on the weather forecast. It's Wake Up Wyoming.